10 tips for solo backpackers. Now, I do most of my backpacking trips solo. I just really got tired of trying to arrange trips with everybody and doing all of the logistics only to have people drop out at the last minute. So for me, it just became easier to just start planning my own trips. And if people want to come along, great, here are the details. But I do a lot of my trips solo. In fact, this year I'm doing several larger solo trips. So this is fresh on my mind. So here are 10 tips for solo backpacking. Number one is self-motivation. You're not going to have a friend, you're not going to have a group who's pushing you to go farther, to get another mile or two in on the trail, to get up that mountain, to not turn around and go back to the car. So you have to teach yourself how to keep going. You have to find a way to keep yourself motivated, really work on discipline, on self-motivation, because there's not going to be anyone else to push you on a solo trip. Number two is physical fitness. Now, admittedly, this is an area where I lag behind, but physical fitness is key if you are on a solo trip, because again, no one's going to be able to help you. You're out there, you have to push yourself, you have to keep going, you have to put in the miles. You know, once you're on the loop or once you're on the trail, there are only two ways back, and that's turning around or going forward. And a lot of the times it's a bunch of miles either way. So you're going to have to be physically fit. You're going to have to be able to carry your gear and your body across that entire trail. So work on your physical fitness. You'll feel better at the end of the day if you're more physically fit. You'll feel better throughout the hike if you're more physically fit also. Number three is plan ahead. Now, this is good advice even if it's not a solo trip, but really look at the trip you're going on and really think about the needs of your trip. On a solo trip, you're not going to be able to rely on other people to provide intel or to think through a problem that occurs on trail. So it is really incumbent on you to know what your trip is going to be, to understand it inside and out, and to be ready for anything that could pop up. Number four is consider going somewhere with bailout points. So on a solo trip, I mentioned earlier, the only two ways are forward and back. Sometimes you do want to cut a trip short, either because physically it's difficult or because you're just not having a great time and you don't have friends or anyone out there to stay with. So, you know, maybe you just don't want to do it. So it's helpful sometimes to have a trip with bailout points, especially early in your backpacking career, if you don't really know your limitations yet. But even if you do, it's helpful to have a way to get out if you do run into trouble. Number five is be safe. Again, you're out there alone. You don't necessarily have anyone around to help you out if things do go sideways. So don't take unnecessary risks. You know your body, you know your limitations. Stay safe. Don't be stupid. If there's a difficult water crossing, or if there's a rock slide, or if a trail is washed out, something like that, sometimes the better thing to do is to turn around or to go to the map and figure out an alternate route. The number one thing is really to be safe and don't put yourself in any unnecessary danger. Number six is leave your plan with someone back home. It's great if you're checking in, if maybe you've got a Garmin InReach or something like that where you can check in with the people back home. But even if you don't, it's a really good idea for someone to have your trip itinerary. That way, if things do go sideways, if you don't come back, if you're out there longer than you expect, someone knows where you were supposed to be, so search and rescue knows where to look. Number seven, and this is kind of tied to number six, but that's stick with your plan. So you just gave the plan to someone back home, right? Stick to it. Otherwise, again, they won't necessarily know where to look if things do go sideways, if you don't come home right away. That said, a minute ago I just said, hey, don't be stupid. If you have to plan an alternate route to go around a danger, do that, right? Obviously that's going to be a difficult situation. That's going to be sort of an emergency situation. So you'll have to audible a little bit, but for the most part, you really want to stick to your plan. And that's going to tie into what I said earlier, which is plan ahead. So maybe your plan does have alternates, like, hey, if this crossing is too difficult, I'll take this alternate route. I'll do this, I'll do that. So have some options built in perhaps, but number one thing is stick to the plan. That way, if they do need to come looking for you, they know where to look. Number eight is know your limits, trust your instincts. You know how physically fit you are. You should probably know how many miles you typically hike in a day, what you're able to do physically. Don't get outside of that. Don't necessarily, you can push yourself on a trip, and you probably should push yourself on a trip, but know what your limits are and don't try to exceed those, and don't push yourself. You know, if you're not someone who can climb a sheer rock face, don't go up on a sheer rock face. And no, trust your instincts. You know when you're in a situation that is a little bit off, a little bit askew. So if you sense that something is off, trust that. If you feel like you're putting yourself into a precarious situation, trust that. So just knowing yourself, trusting your instincts is really going to help keep you safe. Number 9 is consider doing a trail you've already done, especially if this is your first solo trip or one of your first solo trips. Choosing a trail that you've already done and that you kind of already know can be really beneficial. That way you know where your danger spots are going to be. You can plan ahead a little bit better. You can just get comfortable to the idea of hiking by yourself without having to worry about a bunch of other logistical problems. Going somewhere you've already been, hiking a trail that you're already familiar with, maybe you've done in a group trip before, that can be really helpful for a solo trip. Number 10 is triple check your gear list. No one is coming with you, so no one can bail you out if you forget a water filter. No one can bail you out if your stake breaks or if you forgot to bring a stake. So really make sure, A, that you have everything you need for the trip. But number 2, consider, and this is, coming from someone who tries to be an ultralight backpacker, consider packing some redundancies. Consider having that extra O-ring for your water filter. Consider having an additional stake in case one of yours breaks, because you won't be able to borrow from people. You won't be able to trade back and forth. Really triple check your gear list. Consider packing redundancies to keep yourself safe in case things do go sideways. So that's my 10 tips for solo backpacking. If you got value out of this video, please click that thumbs up button. And hey, let's do this again sometime.